first time one of them smiled at me, I almost smiled back. Then I realized they never stopped. Not even after I walked away. Not even when I looked back. They just stood there, smiling. Not a friendly smile. This was different. Emotionless. Like it was held in place in order to hide something far more sinister. Their eyes don't blink. Not even once. I never seen them eat. They move with a kind of precision that feels rehearsed. Smooth, consistent, mechanical. Their routines were exactly the same every day, down to the exact minute. That's when I understood. There was something very wrong with this neighborhood. I moved here earlier that morning, left the noise of the city behind for a small house in the suburbs. The price was much cheaper than what a property like this should have gone for. That should have been the first red flag. I started to notice strange occurrences the longer I observed. The first night, before bed, I went over to my bedroom window to close the blinds. That's when I saw my neighbor, a middle-aged man, standing in his bedroom window. He was just standing there, perfectly still, facing directly towards my window, with that same unnerving smile. It startled me, but I pretended I didn't notice. I quickly shut the blinds and crawled into bed. But even in the dark, I could still see it. A faint silhouette, barely outlined by the dim glow from his bedroom window. Still standing there, not moving, not leaving, just watching. I kept trying to justify it. Mental illness, maybe, or perhaps something darker. Some kind of sick, voyeuristic obsession. That's what I told myself. It was easier than the truth, because the truth was something I wouldn't understand until much later. And by then, it was already too late. The next morning, he was outside watering his lawn. Same smile, same posture, completely normal. "Morning," he said as I passed. His voice was calm and friendly. "Settling in all right?" "Yeah," I replied. He nodded slowly, but his eyes lingered on mine a second too long. That smile never left his face. I sped up, trying to break away from his gaze, but it clung to me even after I passed. I felt it on my back, heavy, unblinking. I didn't dare look behind me. Over the next few days, things became harder to ignore. I would constantly hear them whispering. They never spoke to each other in the same way that they spoke to me. When I got close enough to listen, their whispers would suddenly stop, followed by that same uncanny smile and absent stare as if nothing happened. At night, every house shuts off their light at the same time. Every day at 8:59 p.m., the entire neighborhood goes dark. Sometimes late into the night, I see them standing on their front lawns. The shadows swallow their faces, hiding the details, but not their expressions. Even in the dark, I can still make out the same ominous shape, those fixed smiles, faintly visible beneath the night, as if the darkness itself isn't enough to hide what's unfolding. The worst part is what happens when I take my eyes off them, even for a second. When I look back, they're suddenly closer, not walking, not caught mid-step, just standing there, several feet closer than where I last saw them, like the space between us doesn't exist when I'm not looking. That's when the calls began, every night at the same time, 1:11 a.m., unknown number, an unfamiliar voice on the other end. "We know you've seen it too," the voice said calmly. I jumped out of bed. "You're not imagining it," they said. My grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" I asked. There was a long pause on the other end. "We've been waiting for someone new to notice," the voice continued. "Most people adjust, but you didn't. You have been chosen to help us. We need to launch our attack before it's too late." Before I could ask more questions, they hung up. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. The calls continued, always at the same time, always the same voice. Sometimes it repeated the same message. Sometimes it added new phrases. "You're closer than the others were," they said. "They won't let you leave once you understand. Whatever you do, don't take your eyes off them, but don't look directly into their faces." "Stop calling me," I said, with my voice growing more and more agitated. But the voice on the other end didn't react. "It's almost too late," it said calmly. "We need to retaliate. The fate of the world depends on you now." "Just leave me the fuck alone," I cried out, unable to conceal my frustration. This time, there was no reply, just a sudden, empty silence before the line went dead. I stopped going outside after that. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt like the only option left. I began hearing movement outside my house at night. Faint whispering. I occasionally hear them call out for me, making strange requests at odd hours of the night, asking to go for a jog or to step outside for some fresh air, with their friendly and casual demeanors, as if what they're asking is perfectly normal. One night when I was sleeping, I was woken up by my neighbor calling out for me. When I looked out the window, he was on his front lawn, barbecuing. "Come get some chicken and mashed potatoes, neighbor," he said in his jovial tone. It was 4:15 a.m. He let out an uncanny laugh that sent a cold shiver down my spine. I shut the blinds, and I laid back down. I was awoken again to the sound of loud music coming from outside. I peeked through the blinds again. This time, they were all there, dozens of them, spread across the lawns, the driveway, the street. Not dancing, not reacting to the music, just standing there, facing my house, smiling. I ran downstairs to make sure all of my doors were locked and my blinds were closed. I began hearing loud bangs on my door. I looked through the blinds again. They were standing much closer now, surrounding my house. I was scared, and in a moment of panic, I grabbed a steak knife from the kitchen. That's when I heard it, a window breaking in the next room, followed by sudden movement. They were in my house now. I ran outside, in an effort to get into my car and drive myself to safety. As soon as I opened my door, I was blocked by my neighbor, standing right there. I saw his eyes twitching into the back of his head, wearing that same petrifying smile. "We brought you some barbecue, buddy." His voice wasn't as friendly as it used to be. He held the plate out towards me. My mind refused to make sense of what I was seeing. Then the smell hit. Putrid, heavy, enough to make my stomach turn. And suddenly, it all became clear. On the plate, a decayed human head. He began laughing maniacally, as if this was a punchline to some cruel joke that only he understood. That's when something inside me snapped, and I drove the knife into the side of his neck. The others went into a frenzy after that, their eyes rolling back completely until only the whites showed, and for the first time, their smiles faded. Their jaws dropped unnaturally wide, far beyond what should have been humanly possible. They let out guttural shrieks that split the silence apart, piercing my eardrums. Their movements and posture changed too. The smooth, mechanical rhythm that they once had was now gone, replaced by something erratic, like a rabid animal that had lost all control. They jerked forward in uneven bursts, limbs snapping into motion at unnatural angles, no longer walking, but lunging. Some dropped to the ground, scrambling on all fours, their movements frantic and uncoordinated, yet disturbingly fast as they closed the distance between us. I began cutting through each one of them as I ran to my car. I jumped in, started the engine, and drove straight through as many of them as I could in the chaos. What happened next is unclear. My memory breaks into fragments, scattered pieces that don't connect, no matter how hard I try to piece it all together. I woke up strapped to a bed. The walls were white, bright enough to feel sterile. The door opened, and a man stepped in. No smile, no expression that lasted too long. "Good," he said. "You're awake." "Where am I?" I asked. "A psychiatric facility," he replied. The words landed slowly, as if I had to process something unfathomable. "You stopped taking your medication again," he continued. My chest tightened. "My medication?" He nodded. "You were diagnosed with schizophrenia. When treated, your symptoms are manageable, but when untreated, your perception becomes unreliable." Unreliable? That word didn't feel neutral. It felt like a correction of my experience. "They were real," I said. The man didn't say anything. They they weren't human," I insisted. "I was chosen to save the world," my voice rising with uncertainty. The man looked at me with pity in his eyes. Without a word, he reached for the remote and turned on the news. My stomach dropped. It was me, a massacre in broad daylight. Innocent people, women, children, elderly. "Why did you stop taking your medicine?" he asked. I didn't have an answer. My memory, my perception, even my own experiences were slipping out of reach, reality itself beginning to blur at the edges. He stood up, moved towards the door. "It's over now. You're safe here," he said. "We'll help you stabilize again." Slowly the door began to close, and that's when I saw it. Just before it shut, his face changed. Not fully, not dramatically, just enough for me to notice. A smile, held too long, too wide, too familiar. And that's when I realized this was far from over.